You are now listening to Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, a true crime podcast where cozy meets criminal, hosted by Jasmine C.L. Prince. Grab your yarn, pour up an iced coffee, let's sift through the chaos.
Hey BC3 crew, welcome back to another episode of Black Coffee, Crime, and Crochet, the podcast where we sip iced coffee, work on a few roads of a project, and talk about crimes that are way too close to real life. As always, I'm your host, Jasmine C.L. Prince, and this is part 2 of our New Year Same Scam series. All right, so if y'all listened to last week, the episode was one where we talked about Kevin and Latrice Hargrave and the credit repair scam that could but should not have. It was a wild ride. If you haven't listened to that, go back and listen because I want to know what y'all think about it. But that hustle was from the outside. People promising to fight the system for you while they were really just taking your money. Today, though, guys, we are not looking at someone standing outside the credit system. We are going inside of it. This episode is about what happens when the people feeding data to the credit bureaus decide to lie. Not just on one account, but on thousands. Picture this. You pull up your credit report one day and almost everything bad has vanished. Late payments, charge-off, collections, all gone. In its place, there are these beautiful, clean trade lines. They say you have perfect credit, perfect payment history with the furniture company and you never shopped at, and a funding company you've never heard of. You did not negotiate. You didn't pay anything off. You did not open any new cards. Yet somehow your credit looks brand new. Now, flip the camera. Behind the scenes, there are two people who have figured out how to sit at the same table as the banks and car lenders. They don't dispute the items. They become the ones who report them. They create shell companies. They apply to be official data furnishers with Experian and TransUnion. They get access to the same pipeline that real lenders use. Instead of reporting honest histories, they start inventing credit out of thin air. They add fake positive accounts. They delete real negative ones. They override reality. They literally create new out of nothing. On paper, it looks like thousands of people suddenly cleaned up their lives. In the real world, though, it is a $48 million fraud. The government would later call it one of the largest credit repair frauds ever charged. At the center of it all, in New York, are two names, Edwin Jacquet and Denise Hudson. So let's talk about the credit repair scam that did not just game the system, it sat inside it and rewrote the rules. But before we get into the mess, you already know if you're new here, we start with our iced coffee of the week. So let's get into that. Today we are drinking what I call a clean slate caramel cold brew. It is sweet, a little extra, and unlike the people in the story, it is completely honest about what's in it. So if you're making it at home, you will need either a 16 or a 20 ounce cup. To that, you're going to add 1 to 2 tablespoons caramel sauce in the bottom of the cup, 6 ounces of strong cold brew or chilled coffee, 4 ounces of your favorite milk or non-dairy milk, 1 to 2 teaspoons of vanilla syrup if you like it sweeter, and then ice. Stir in the caramel coffee and milk together until it's smooth. If you want a fancy, drizzle in the caramel around the inside of the cup first. I do that a lot. I'll line the inside of my cup with caramel. And then bring the drink to the top, take a sip, and that's it. Crochet update. I'm so proud of myself with this sweater from my husband. The front and back panels and the neckline are completely done, sewed together. He's tried it on. It fits. I'm so excited. The hood is almost done. I took a break from that to start on the sleeves. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to construct the sleeves. They're going to be in double crochet. So what I've done is start decreasing. So I start I'm a couple rows into it, and I'm done double crochet 2 together, 2 stitches of regular double crochet 2 together all the way around, and then I'll do a regular row of double crochets and then another decreased row and another row of double crochets. So I'm trying to figure out how many decreased rows I need because the sleeve is a little bulky right now. So I think I'm going to have them keep trying to get on, but this is way better than the last attempt that I did. Like, I'm actually going to be able to finish this. So I'm really excited, and he looks great in it so far. So yeah, that is the crochet update. So now that we have something honest in the cup, we've talked about the crochet update. Let's talk about what happens when the people in charge of reporting credit decide to lie on purpose. Edwin Jacquet and Denise Hudson were central figures in what authorities called the largest credit repair fraud scheme ever prosecuted. Operating in the late 2000s, they promised to repair consumers' bad credit in exchange for hefty fees, but did so through fraudulent tactics that corrupted credit bureaus' data. From 2007 through 2009, Edwin, Denise, and their associates ran a multi-million-dollar scheme to falsify credit histories and boost credit scores for thousands of clients who had poor credit. They did this by hijacking legitimate credit reporting processes, essentially tricking credit bureaus into recording false positive information and erasing true negative information. By manipulating the data that lenders rely on, they enabled their clients, the purported customers, to obtain loans and credit cards they otherwise would not qualify for. I need y'all to understand the level of sophistication this is. Most credit repair schemes are like the ones that we talked about last week. This one, I've never, ever heard of people actually going in and manipulating the system the way that they did. They didn't just pretend to do it and then take your money. They're actually going in and this is like I said, this is a level of sophistication I have not seen. We'll see where the errors and cracks came in, but I kind of want to say kudos to them, even though we know this is wrong and I'm not glorifying crime. But to be able to think of this and the way that they thought about how to do it, I've not seen anything like this. And I watch a lot of, American Greed and things like that. And I've never seen this level of sophistication when it comes to credit repair. So here's how the scheme worked. Edwin established or used 2 companies, Highway Furniture, Inc., a Brooklyn-based furniture store, and New York Funding Group, Inc., a Long Island-based debt funding company, as the vehicles for the fraud. These companies were registered as, quote, data furnishers, end quote, with major credit bureaus, Experian and TransUnion, from 2007 to 2008, which gave them the ability to submit credit account information directly to consumers' credit files. So they were the ones actually putting it in. They weren't like sending in a letter to somebody to put it in. No, they went in themselves and did it. In reality, Highway Furniture was largely a shell, purportedly selling mattresses, and New York Funding didn't truly invest in debt. Their true purpose was to serve as pipeways to feed false data into credit reporting systems. So by leveraging these companies' furniture status, the conspirators executed a 2-pronged attack on the credit reports of their paying clients. So the first way they did it was adding fake tradelines or credit accounts. They reported fictitious loans and credit accounts to the bureaus, showing the clients as having new lines of credit that were in good standing. For example, Highway Furniture and New York Funding would falsely report that they had extended credit to a person and that the person was repaying on time, even though no such credit was ever given. The effect was to create fake positive credit history, inflating the client's credit score. Over the course of the scam, nearly 3,000 sham trade lines were added to hundreds of individuals' credit reports. These seasoned trade lines dramatically improved clients' credit profiles, making them appear creditworthy when they actually weren't. After the credit scores jumped, these clients proceeded to secure real loans, including mortgages, auto loans, student loans, and credit cards, to the tune of $47.8 million dispersed by unwitting lenders. Many of those loans, unfortunately, later defaulted, causing over $9.3 million in losses to banks and lenders when the borrowers failed to repay. Which this is why credit repair is such a dangerous concept, because there was no education or systems put into place to where people could afford these lines that they were taking out. It was just, people think if they have access to more credit, it'll fix their issues, when in reality, that's just one part of the issue. Like, there has to be education, there has to be the financial backing there to keep up with payments, and so there has to be more than just here's more credit to get into more debt. So that was the first way. The second way was deleting legitimate negative records. So in addition to adding positive data, Edwin's team removed accurate but unfavorable information from credit files. They gained access to a system called eOscar, the Electronic Online Solutions for Complete and Accurate Reporting, a software platform credit bureaus provide to furnishers to process credit report disputes. Instead of using eOscar for its intended purpose, which is correcting errors or resolving consumer disputes, Denise, Edwin, and their co-conspirators abused it to fraudulently delete or alter over 4,400 genuine derogatory credit items, likely delinquencies, collections, or debts from hundreds of consumers' files. They would, for example, falsely claim that New York Funding had purchased a debtor's delinquent account and that the debt was paid, prompting the credit bureau to erase the negative record. In essence, they washed credit reports clean of bad debt history through false dispute entries. This exploitation of a system loophole caused substantial damage to a protected computer, which is the charge to which Denise pleaded guilty, because it corrupted the integrity of the credit bureau's database. Again, this level of sophistication, I've never seen it. And it's like, who would think to even do this? I'm surprised that this scam isn't more widely talked about. Again, I know I'm a loss for words, but it's because I honestly have never seen anything like this ever. I was shocked when I was looking into this. So I'm surprised it's not more widely covered. Here's what they did not do. It's worth noting that unlike some credit repair scams, Edwin and Denise's scheme did not primarily rely on stolen identities or creation of synthetic identities via CPNs, which, if you don't know, is a credit profile number. They didn't invent new identities for clients. Instead, they manipulated the actual credit files of the customers. So by adding and deleting information within real credit reports, they bypassed the need for fake social security numbers or identity theft. The fraud lay in falsifying the data tied to real consumers, making this scheme particularly deceptive because it masqueraded as legitimate credit reporting activity. Now we get into the marketing of the scam and targeting clients. So Edwin and Denise did not advertise openly to the general public because that would have been dangerous. Instead, they marketed and this is another sophisticated layer to it. They marketed their fraudulent credit repair services through a network of brokers and affiliate agents. So these brokers were essentially intermediaries, often operating their own credit repair or financial services businesses, who would find individuals with bad credit and promise to improve their credit scores for a fee, of course. In the New York City area, especially Brooklyn and Long Island, the conspirators tapped into communities where many residents struggled with credit issues, offering what sounded like a miraculous fix. The pitch was straightforward. For a significant fee, your credit could be, quote, repaired, and you become eligible for loans or credit cards that previously were out of reach. So brokers typically told prospective clients that they had special ways to clean up credit reports. According to court records, these brokers collected thousands of dollars from each client and then funneled the client's information to Edwin's company to perform the illicit credit file alterations. The brokers were paid a commission for every customer they brought into the program. So this is where I'm a little confused and I couldn't find the exact answer. I'm not sure if the fees that they collected from the clients was one way they made money, and then they also got a commission from Edwin, or if the fee that they took went to Edwin and then they got a commission off of that. I don't know if they were double dipping from both ends or if it was one way. But from what I'm looking at, it seems like they were double dipping. Like they got money, they got paid from the clients and they got paid from Edwin, which if so, that is crazy. In many cases, the clients were likely unaware of the illegal methods being used. They were simply desperate individuals, often financially distressed or unable to get mortgages or car loans, who were willing to pay for credit score help. The conspirators exploited this desperation. Internally, Edwin's operation charged steep fees for their services, netting a large profit. Investigators later noted that the fraud ring collected over $1 million in fees from consumers, with individual customers paying hundreds and sometimes thousands of dollars each. Both English-speaking and possibly immigrant communities were targeted via these broker networks, using word of mouth and community ties to find new customers. Promotional language likely emphasized, quote, legal credit repair and, quote, seasoned trade lines, giving the impression of legitimacy. In reality, though, clients were paying to have false credit history created, a practice that is illegal. The affiliates themselves may not have fully grasped that the methods were fraudulent. Some, quote, must have believed the services were legitimate, quote, end quote, according to one analyst, but nonetheless, they acted as the marketing and sales force of the scheme. Let's get into the legal timeline and court proceedings. The fraudulent activity took place roughly between 2007 and 2009, after which investigators caught on. So here is the timeline of the major legal developments in the case of Edwin, Denise, and their co-conspirators. July 25th, 2011 is the indictment. A federal grand jury in the Southern District of New York indicted Edwin and three associates, Edwin J. Mansour Jr., Peter Romeo, and Denise Hudson, on charges of conspiracy to commit bank fraud and conspiracy to cause damage to a protected computer. That same day, Mansour, Romeo, and Hudson were arrested, while Edwin initially remained at large. He wasn't immediately apprehended. The indictment, unsealed in Manhattan federal court, outlined the credit repair scheme and alleged that from 2007 to 2010, the four had conspired to defraud financial institutions and corrupt credit bureau data. Then we get Edwin's capture. At some point after the indictment, Edwin was taken into custody. The record does not specify the exact date of arrest, but he had fled because he had fled initially. But facing the evidence against him, he chose not to go to trial. And this was in early 2012 when he was captured. And then his guilty plea. He entered the guilty plea on March 21st, 2012 in Manhattan federal court to one count of conspiracy to commit bank fraud. In his plea agreement, he admitted to leading the scheme and agreed to pay restitution exceeding $9 million to the victims, which are the banks defrauded. This plea was entered before a U.S. magistrate judge, and it spared Edwin a trial. In exchange, prosecutors agreed to dismiss the additional computer fraud conspiracy count. At this point, the U.S. Attorney's Office publicly emphasized that the scheme caused lenders to extend millions of dollars of credit to unqualified applicants, end quote, who later defaulted. Which, if they hadn't defaulted, I wonder if this would have ever been found out. Does that make sense? Like, if they were getting loans that they could afford and were positioned to pay on time and they never defaulted on the loans, I wonder, not glorifying this or saying that it was right, but I wonder if this would have ever been uncovered. Then we get October 2012, which is Denise and the co-defendants' pleas. So following extensive discovery and negotiations, the remaining charged co-conspirators also pleaded guilty. Denise pleaded guilty on October 18, 2012 to 2 felonies, conspiracy to commit bank fraud and conspiracy to damage a protected computer. Edwin J. Mansour Jr., another key accomplice who helped operate the fake companies, had pleaded guilty a week later on October 10th, 2012. Not a week later, a week earlier, He had pleaded guilty a week earlier on October 10th, 2012 to the bank fraud conspiracy charge. The status of Peter Romeo was less publicized. He was indicted and arrested with the others, but it appears he may have eventually reached a plea deal as well or cooperated, although details were not widely reported. The focus of court filings and press releases was on Edwin Jr., and Denise, who were the core operators. Each defendant faced up to 30 years in prison on the bank fraud conspiracy count alone. Sentencing. We're going to do Edwin first. He was sentenced on December 6, 2012. The U.S. District Judge Naomi Rice Buchwald sentenced Edwin to 63 months in federal prison, which is 5 years and 3 months for his leadership role, which when you're facing 30 and you only got a little over 5, I'd say that's a deal. He was also ordered to pay $9.3 million in restitution to the defrauded banks and given 3 years of supervised release after prison, which I don't understand how they expect people to repay restitution in those amounts. Is he supposed to be able to get some type of job to repay that? I'm not sure. $9.3 million is a lot of money. So if anybody can explain how restitution is repaid when people aren't inherently wealthy, I'd appreciate it. In his sentencing hearing, Judge Buchwald underscored the severity of the offense and Edwin's history, remarking that his actions, quote, deserved this substantial sentence, end quote, imposed. Edwin was 39 years old at sentencing and had earned a stiff punishment in the judge's view due to it being his 3rd felony conviction. Then Denise and Edwin Jr. sentences. On March 20th, 2013, Edwin Jr. was sentenced to 51 months in prison, which is 4 years and 3 months, and Denise was sentenced to 30 months in prison, 2 years and 5 months. Both were held jointly responsible for restitution of the $9.3 million in losses shared with Edwin, and each received 2 years of supervised release to follow incarceration. Judge Buchwald, who also sentenced these co-defendants, commented particularly harshly on Edwin Jr.'s conduct, noting that even after his arrest, he had tried to commit a further fraud, submitting a false disaster relief claim post-Hurricane Sandy, which the judge said showed, quote, absolutely disrespectful, end quote, contempt for the law. Denise's additional guilty plea on the computer-related conspiracy charge likely contributed to her more moderate sentence, 30 months, shorter than her male counterparts' terms. By accepting responsibility and assisting in resolving the case, she may have received some leniency, though she still faced a significant prison term. So all 3 were ordered to begin paying restitution over $9 million to the affected lenders, though such a sum is largely symbolic given their likely inability to pay in full, which is what I was saying. All three served their prison terms in federal facilities. Edwin, for instance, served time and later appeared in court filings in 2016 related to a prison program and discipline issue. By mid-2015, the case was officially closed, and the last updates noted the sentences and the successful prosecution of the U.S. Attorney's Office. Throughout the legal process, authorities highlighted the unprecedented nature of the scheme. It was, quote, believed to be the largest known credit repair fraud ever charged, end quote, said U.S. Attorney Preet Brahara. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing your name. The charges and eventual convictions made clear that selling fraudulent credit score boosts is a serious federal crime. It was pretty quick, too. The timeline reflects how swiftly the scheme was dismantled once it was discovered. So the key players were indicted in 2011, and all had pleaded guilty within about a year, with sentences being handed down by the end of 2012, early 2013. So this wrapped up and came together very quickly. So the broader implications and community impact, we're going to get into that a little bit. This case had significant implications for the credit reporting system, lenders, and consumers. First and foremost, it exposed a serious vulnerability in the credit bureau ecosystem. The fact that a small furniture store and a shelf finance company could become authorized data furnishers, and then inject thousands of false entries into credit files was a wake-up call. It showed that the controls at the time were not fully prepared for insiders acting in bad faith. But in response, credit bureaus and regulators were likely prompted to strengthen the vetting process for furnishers and to monitor for unusual credit reporting activity, such as an explosion of new accounts or mass deletions coming from a single source. The loophole in eOscar that the team exploited, essentially trust given to furnishers to self-report corrections, was presumably closed or more tightly restricted after the scheme came to light. The cooperation of Experian and TransUnion in the investigation hints that they too were keen to prevent such an abuse from reoccurring. For lenders, the scheme underscored the need for vigilance against credit washing and fabricated trade lines. Banks incurred over $9 million in losses from loans made to people whose creditworthiness was artificially inflated. These losses translate into real economic damage, like lenders might pass costs on via higher interest rates or tighter standards, which ultimately affects ordinary borrowers in the community. It also could have led to some individuals getting in over their heads. The purported customers who obtained $47+ million in loans often could not repay them, meaning they likely faced defaults, vehicle repossessions, or foreclosures on homes. So while those individuals initially benefited from the fraud by getting loans, many ended up deeper in debt than when they started. So the community impact includes those borrowers now suffering ruined finances and possibly bankruptcies once the house of cards fell. In essence, the scheme might have simply delayed and magnified personal financial pain for the clients, aside from the criminal aspect. So from a community standpoint, the story also educated the public. It shed light on what legitimate credit repair looks like versus fraud. For example, no legitimate credit repair service can magically remove accurate negative info or create credit history from thin air. Any company that claims to do so is a red flag. And I want to pause here for a minute because I saw this personally. A few years ago on Facebook, there was someone offering credit repair services who said that, hey, I can get your student loans removed from your credit report, or I can get repossessions removed from your credit report. And so someone close to me sent me a message like, hey, do you know anything about this? To which I said, yes, I know people who say that they can remove these items from your credit report to make it look better, but in essence, you still owe that report, and they're not fixing your credit because you still owe that debt. They're just trying to make it be hidden so that other lenders can't see it, which is illegal. And they were like, oh my gosh, thank you for telling me. I figured that was too good to be true. To which the response was that person that posted it sent me a message like, hey, can you remove that comment? No, I'm not removing that comment because you're out here trying to get people. And the person who messaged me initially was somebody really close to me who, had I not known, might have fallen for that trap. If they're telling you they can remove it from your credit without you paying it off and it's a legitimate debt that you owe, that is a red flag. It is illegal. Please don't do that. Again, this is not like, I'm not a financial advisor or anything like that. This is not like official advice. I'm just saying from my experience what I have seen and what I know to be true. But again, take this as educational purposes only. There we go. That's the term. This is for educational purposes only. If you see something like that, ask more questions or just go away completely. If it's a legitimate debt, you actually owe it and you need to pay it off. Call the lender, make payment arrangements, do what you need to do, but no one can remove it from your credit report if it's something that you actually owe. So I had to say that. So from this, though, it's, in a way, it improved awareness. So there's that. But then finally, there's a broader ethical implication. The integrity of credit scores is crucial for fair access to credit, which, yeah and no. When schemes like this occur, they not only hurt lenders, but also undermine trust in the system that scores reflect one's true credit risk. So in conclusion, the saga of Edwin and Denise stands as a stark example of credit repair gone criminal. It combined elements of ingenuity. It combined elements of deception, using inside access to game the system in a way few had ever seen before and probably ever will see again. It reminds us that credit scores must be earned, not bought or stolen, and any scheme to shortcut that process can have dire consequences for all involved. So here is where we land with Edwin and Denise. They did not slide in through the side door. They walked in the front door, applied to be official data furnishers, and got trusted access to the same systems that hold all of our financial reputations. They then turned that access into a business model. Fake companies, fake trade lines, real people with damaged or messy credit desperate for a solution. Nearly $48 million in loans approved off of lies. More than $9 million in losses when those loans went bad. For a lot of the people who paid them, it probably felt like a blessing at first. Credit scores went up, doors opened, life finally moving again. But if the foundation is a lie, the collapse is coming. And when it hits, it does not just fall on the fraudsters, it hits the people who trusted them, and it shakes trust in the system itself. If there is one thing I want you to take from this episode, is this. Anyone who tells you they can control what the credit bureaus report the way a lender can, anyone who claims that they can add you to accounts or erase history from the inside is not just doing credit repair. They are playing with federal charges. Credit should be slow and boring. It's not supposed to be fast. It's not supposed to be dramatic. It's not supposed to be a quick fix. It takes time. It's a lengthy process. So please keep that in mind. But next episode, we are staying in the New Year's Same Scams theme and looking at what happens when people start building whole new identities around fake numbers and stolen information. And if y'all know anything about CPNs, we're going to really get into that. It's all over TikTok and everything. So y'all just wait. Also, before we go, I want to get into the listener survey that I dropped last week. If you've been trying to fill it out between, I would say, Wednesday afternoon to now, I'm not taking responses. I'll make it go live again when this episode drops. But if you have been trying to fill it out in the last week, it was down because I got infiltrated by bots. I thought that I had gotten a lot of responses. I was so excited. But then I checked the emails and the responses, and I'm like, okay, these are bots. So I had to go in and put in some questions that could filter out bot responses so that I know which ones are legitimate and which ones aren't. So I also added the rules to it and what you have to do in order to actually be entered into the gift card raffle so that I'm not getting, like I said, bots or people just trying to finesse and get a gift card when they're not doing anything. So if you tried and you weren't able to do it, please try again. I had to figure out what to do, but I've done it now and it is live again now. So please go back and do it for me. Because so far I have one legitimate response. Shout out to Stephanie Prince. Thank you so much for all your support, all of your amazing, encouraging comments. They truly, truly do mean a lot to me. She's the only one I have gotten a legitimate entry from. So if you have not done yet, please do that. Also, if you enjoy the podcast and you want others to hear about it or you want to help me out, please like, subscribe, rate, review on Amazon, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcast. It helps push it out for other people to find me out. Follow me on all of my social medias. I'm going to try to do better with posting more on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook. I do have a discussion group if you'd like to join that as well. You do have to answer the questions, just so, again, I know I'm not getting any bots. I think that is it. We will be back again next week with another episode in this New Year's Same Scams series. But until then, I don't know, keep your iced coffee cold, your crochet steady, and please keep your credit rebuilding legal, y'all. Don't fall for these scams when it comes to credit rebuilding, and just do it yourself if you need to. But that is all. I will talk to y'all later. Bye.
Disclaimer. Great effort is made to ensure that all materials used in Black Coffee Crime and Crochet adhere to fair use guidelines. No copyright infringement is intended. If you are the copyright owner or represent the owner of any material used in this content and have concerns about its use, please contact me and I will promptly address the issue.